Hi, everyone. Welcome to this first panel of the afternoon. This discussion will be mainly with you. Otherwise, it's not a discussion. So I'd like to start this afternoon with you. You have Melvin over here with the mic. He's your best friend to join the conversation. So maybe we can start to ask if some of you want to share why they are here this afternoon for this conversation. Don't be shy. I'd love to know. It's better for us than to really answer your questions. Oh, wait for the mic, please. So.
We saw a lot of things about Estonia on TV, and I'm pretty interested in what you're going to say about your country.
Where'd you come from?
France?
Here in Nantes?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We had Thierry over there, but he's cheated. He's a friend.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends. No, my question is mainly as startup CEOs and entrepreneur. I thought I understood that with the e-Residency, you just thought a way for all those digital startups to find the place that understand how we work, how we think, and how we want to develop. And I'm really curious to see how far you go in that, because I think that's real countries and politics that failed us with that understanding of how we work, how we think, how we move, and how we go internationally. So yeah, if I can have a lot of answers about that, it would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Thierry. Anyone else want to share why you're here and your best question you are sure you want us to answer?
Hello, it's simple. My wife is Polish, so I'm from a European family, and I'm curious what is maybe it's related to Europe or a country in Europe. So I'm curious.
Okay, does it? We have someone else with the white shirt. Does anyone comes from a non-EU country in the room? Okay, so you're next.
I would like to know what IT changed in Estonia in the last 10 years in your lives.
That's pretty broad, but thanks for that. And then the last one over there, Melvin, maybe. And now you're shy.
Hello. I've been following the e-Estonia thing for a while, and I'm curious to get the latest updates on especially the progress that's been made on making it easier to open a business. Because at first that was a bit difficult, but with being able to rent an address and that kind of thing, it's getting easier.
Thank you very much.
I want to have all the latest.
So, with me today to answer your questions and a bit of mine too, we have Arnaud and Anna. So please welcome them warmly. They are the experts. Anna and Arnaud, I'd love you guys to introduce yourself shortly. Why you guys are in this room? So maybe Anna.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. And thank you all for coming here today in this wonderful afternoon. And it's pretty nice out there as well. So my name is Anna, and for the last 7 years I've been working in the field of e-governance and ICT companies and export promotion. And e-Estonia as a brand is something that we are managing and building in Enterprise Estonia. And so I'm really proud to know that so many people have heard something nice, and I'm ready to open up some of the topics of digitalization from our perspective. And why do we do it? It's pretty challenging, and how French people can benefit from that as well.
Thank you. Arnaud, why are you here, and what topics do you want to cover today?
So, hello everybody. Thank you very much for coming here. As you can notice from my accent, I'm French, but I'm working for the e-Residency program as the head of public relations. And Before this, I was actually working for the former French president, François Hollande. So I've moved from one government to another. So I can even sometimes compare and see how both countries are quite different, but there are a lot of similarities at the same time. So yeah, I'm working for the e-Residency program. Some of you have probably already heard about it. It's a digital ID card that allows anyone from anywhere in the world to become a resident, and the main motivation for them is to create a company and manage and run it fully online.
Maybe we can start with what happened in 1991. Anna, would you please explain to us?
Well, in 1991, basically the story of Estonian pathfinding story in the digital world started when we regained independence. So we pretty much had 27 years to build everything from scratch. And this is what we have today is the result of this work. And since we never really had been in the center of the universe when it comes to finance, we had 1.3 million of people. And like our president likes to say, our biggest resource lies in between our ears. So we actually had to use this, and we also knew that the internet was invented, that computers were there, so pretty much lacking a lot of finance and people, we just had to think of a different model of a government and public services and business environment that we would build, so we could just, pay for it. And of course, citizen-centric as it is today, our state services are available online in 99%, so everything you might think or want from the government you can get from the couch at your home, or actually being in France today, I could simply use any of the service. So pretty much it's a normal evolutionary process that Estonia has passed, and when you're living in the hard conditions like in nature, you just evolve in a different direction. And we're happy today that even France, as your Prime Minister says, should be there in the digital path in just 5 years' time. We would be happy if this would happen so fast. But it's a bit more challenging, probably, for some of the long history countries.
How did you start to work towards helping entrepreneurs starting their businesses in Estonia?
The idea of the e-Residency program, it actually originates from the whole infrastructure and underlying system that we have. First of all, it's the state-issued identity documents that 98% of people have and use them to access all the public services. And businesses are not an exclusion, because the business services, like starting a company online, the world record in doing this is 18 minutes. And I've tested it out myself. 10 minutes I was thinking about the name, because all the validations would be done. It's really super simple, and you have a fully functional legal company from your couch, from anywhere in the world, just using your state-issued ID. And so, as Estonian businesses, we're benefiting a lot from starting a company online, from paperless reporting, from e-tax system, where you declare all your taxes online. You don't have to produce paperwork, and the annual report is only electronical. We were always trying to find a way how we can export this. But as countries are different, their political systems, their legal systems, behind it, we cannot export everything. But we already have the services infrastructure. So how can we give international business people a taste of simple and fast doing business? The business environment that we have is something like administration heaven. And therefore, an idea of e-Residency card, which is very similar to the Estonian state-issued ID card, it has the same function of strongest identification according to EU regulation and giving digital signature. And this card, not granting citizenship or any permanent residency status, still gives access to all the business services to any international company.
When did this decision was taken in Estonia to open this service to non-Estonians?
So since we didn't actually know how this would go, e-Residency is known as the first governmental startup. So it was a a risky move. We actually didn't know the scope of the services. We didn't know what the businesses around the world really wanted. So in the first stage, when we announced this opportunity, we were basically talking to so many businesses and companies, trying to understand what's the value for them, why do they want to do it. And this formed the e-Residency in the way how it is today. But around 3 years, maybe a little bit more.
December 2014, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a very important move. And as far as I know, we've changed a bit of 26 laws for doing this. So I can see Estonian government has moved really quickly because we understood that the value of location independency for companies, simple and fast and paperless reporting for many startups, companies, investors is actually a great and important thing. And we just took on to test it out. We didn't know how it would go. So it was a pretty risky thing.
Maybe, Arnaud, you can help us better understand who are the people becoming e-residents. Some personal stories or some trends?
Yeah, so right now we have, I mean, in 3 years' time, we now reached the figure of, we have 40,000 e-residents coming from 155 countries around the world. So obviously, all the stories are very, very diverse and very different from one to another. But they all have one thing common, and especially the ones who created their companies, is that e-residency helped them to fix some of the challenges they were facing when trying to become entrepreneurs or freelancers in their home country. So we have a lot of very different use cases. I could mention some one Indian resident named Deepak Solanki, who's been developing a company named Velmeni. They do Li-Fi technology, so change of information and data through light. And becoming a resident allowed him to access and secure finance for its company because he reached some investors who wanted to invest in a European company. And now he has a lot of clients, including Airbus, and he managed his company fully from Delhi. Even if he comes to Estonia quite often, he also now a regular speaker at some big conferences. He went to Slush in Helsinki. So this is one of the important use cases we have: entrepreneurs, innovators from out of the EU. But we have also stories that we have also a very huge community of digital nomads, people who want to work and travel at the same time, and who wants to have access to, who wants to manage a company without any administrative harassment or stress or anything. But we also have people who are not involved in the tech industry at all. For instance, we have Arzu Altintay, who's a Turkish resident. She's a tour guide from Istanbul, and a couple of years ago, PayPal decided to stop operating in Turkey. So given that she was dealing with a lot of foreign tourists, her business were near to collapse. But by becoming a resident, it allowed her to continue doing her business, save her business actually, and now she's even expanding her activities in other European countries, so she could even scale up her business. So we don't only work with tech people, we don't only work with startups, but we can actually fix many issues faced by entrepreneurs, but also freelancers, digital nomads, and different kind of profile around the world.
While we were preparing, you shared with me some figures regarding the countries where most e-residents are from. So could you explain a lot? Explain to us a bit why some come from a certain part of the world?
Yeah, so for instance, in terms of company creation, the biggest delegation comes from Ukraine. It's very interesting. It's actually understandable because a lot of Ukrainian developers, for instance, are working with European clients or American ones. So for them, it's very convenient because when you create a company thanks to e-residency, you create a legitimate Estonian, so it means a legitimate European company with the same access to services and the same rights and duties as any European company. So Ukraine is the main delegation in terms of company creation, and the main motivation for the entrepreneurs or freelancers there is to deal with European or American clients. Okay. And also access PayPal, because the access to PayPal is also restricted in Ukraine, like in Turkey.
Let's dig a bit into the financial problems some startups, entrepreneurs looking for e-residency are trying to solve thanks to you. Anna, you talked a bit about how the banking system is working and what are the challenges you guys are facing or wanting to help entrepreneurs face?
So since the Estonian government in our country has always been leading this innovation processes, in many areas it is very challenging to work with private sector and to get them on the same page. And it just takes time. Like in the history of the ID card, the state-issued national identity, since our local banks are international ones mostly, so Scandinavian banks, it took around 3,000 hours of lobby work to convince them to start also using the state-issued ID for identifying their customers online. And after this time, they become one of the biggest promoters, as not only the bank didn't have to develop their own identification system to be as strong because the government backed it up, it's in a non-hackable, well, without a quantum computer system. But banks realized that they get a stronger identification. They don't have to develop this system. They know who is in front of the computer, so they were saving big on developing and promoting digital banking solutions greatly. And mobile ID and ID card are the main tools how we log into the bank. It's not the password card or PIN calculator. These are minor things that they use. And of course, it took time to get the banks on board as they are obeying the international regulations and have their own issues. And in the face of the e-residency, to simplify doing business, our government also changed laws in order to allow e-residents opening a bank account online. Somehow people think that physical contact when you're coming to the bank and someone identifies you, it is really secure. Like, you know, with a handwritten signature. But it is actually around 60% of probability, especially when you come to Estonia, a Chinese person with a Chinese passport, just forget it. It never is going to be 99%. And so this new regulation our government passed on opening a bank account online laid out a few ways of how a recording of a phone call, a video call with a bank employee and the facial recognition techniques and tools could actually provide a much better identification that is needed than any human process, because human processes always has some human factors, as we know. And of course, it's a radically new thing for the whole banking around the world. And so for us, it is a challenge and an opportunity, of course, for our banks to think what are the tools they need to have in order to take advantage of these options. Because always in the banks, credibility and trust from their customers are the biggest issues. And the more international residents, the more international companies they're servicing, the bigger are the challenges for them to understand their background and check the origin of finances and so on. But of course, the opportunity to benefit from international companies, and it's a way for banks to actually modernize their business model, change it in a way how the modern society actually is looking for.
It's one of the very interesting things in Estonia is that the innovation and disruption comes from the public sector. So it's quite unique, and I don't have another example of a country in which it's civil servants and public sector that is leading the way in terms of innovation. E-Residency was born out of a hackathon involving civil servants. So it's very interesting to realize that innovation can come from the government. And civil servants can be leading the way, and sometimes can be even more willing to take risk when they can see the benefits in the long run.
Now we have a government that helped its private sector better serve its citizen, and then open that to residents that are not citizens. What do those e-residents have done for Estonia so far? What are the realizations you are proud of and you can share with us?
Indeed, the e-residents have a positive economic impact in Estonia. So that's one of the major things. Because yes, with e-residency, we we are aiming to democratize the access to entrepreneurship worldwide, but we are a governmental agency. So at the same time, we must create value in Estonia, we must increase the business ties of e-residents with Estonia, and we must fuel the Estonian economy. So, we had an economic report done by Deloitte recently, and I'm going to give more details about it. But yeah, we're really keen on developing these economic ties between e-residents and Estonian people. Because when you become a resident, you may need to have access to legal advice, to have access to tax advice, virtual office, and all of this. And we help you to get in touch and to access a network of Estonian company which grow bigger thanks to services that they provide to a resident. We are very happy to hear recently that I think it's the second or the third fastest growing startup in Estonia named Lipin. Well, they third fastest growing startup in Estonia, but mostly because they serve residents. And we are very happy to have examples like this of companies who grow bigger because of the fact they can now access a community of digitally empowered entrepreneurs, freelancers around the world. But yeah, about the economic impact, I think Anna is going to give more details about it.
Thank you, Arnaud. So, overall, speaking of the governmental perspective on why do we even want to take the risk, what is it in for us? Today, Estonia is actually a country that 4 unicorn companies are originating from. Even very high-level tech companies cannot always brag about it. Come on, we have 27 years of capitalism. We're just learning how to do it. And all of these companies, TransferWise, Playtech, Taxify just recently closed a new round, they are in the ICT field very strongly. They don't care where their offices are. And this is exactly the type of businesses that benefit us most. Our local market is super small, you can imagine. It's the size of like Denmark, but people, it's like 8 times less people. So we always think of global companies, and global companies, export-oriented companies, international companies are the ones that benefit our economy the most. And of course, if they're our own people who develop it, it's good. But if we can facilitate building internationally valuable ICT companies using Estonia as a platform, then this would be perfect. And as for the Deloitte report and analysis that was done to study the impact of e-residency and considering the exponential growth that we have seen in the number of e-residents so far, the direct economic impact, so different taxes, services, different fees for establishing company, this estimates around to 340 million euros by 2025. And when we look at the indirect socioeconomic impact, which also includes tourism, because somehow e-residents really like to come and see what is this country when they have a good experience. And maybe we have a potential of them hiring people in Estonia, we have a potential of them investing in Estonia, or like there's so many different forms. It's not just of activity that e-residents can run online. Then this impact is estimated by 2025 to 1.7 billion euros. This is basically 8% of our GDP. This is huge, and e-residency can be the largest growth plan, a very disruptive and new way for Estonia to actually, not have as many residents, but facilitate and help so many companies that maybe once we don't have to pay taxes.
And all of this without any technological innovation. E-residency is not a technological innovation. We just provide the access to services that and infrastructure that already exist for Estonian citizens and residents. So it's just a change in the mindset in terms of innovation. It came from very simple but very radical ideas. What if a country could offer its services not only to its citizens and residents, but also to anyone from anywhere in the world who could benefit from the services? So we really show that countries don't have to choose between being open to the rest of the world or offering good services to its citizens. Or both, in both sides,
And in
fits-
fact,
fits
offering the
those
best services to your
Exactly.
citizens
It
allowed Estonia
it brings
to
revenue
propose
for
something
Estonian
else.
citizens. Yeah.
Before we go to the what are your next challenges with this program that is not 3 years old, what are the next projects you have that are related to the same values or to the same objectives? I'd love the audience to have the opportunity now to ask some questions about what it is now. Maybe something you need us to dig deeper, something we didn't cover yet. So Melvin is over there. We have a first question. Help him by raising your hands while the previous person is talking so that he can see where you are.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm wondering what are the fiscal implications for companies that want to get the e-residency?
Do you mean how much does it cost?
No, the fiscal implications, the taxes that have to be paid to Estonia.
If you don't have any workforce in Estonia, you don't have to pay social taxes. Corporate tax is 0% on reinvested profits, which is great news for R&D companies. But initially, the tax schemes are very different on the type of the business you are in. Usually, the tax is paid where the most value is generated, and we share tax information with the country where which your passport basically originates from. So it's a very transparent, a very legal and inclusive system that doesn't allow actually any tax scheming. But for some countries, it provides additional benefits. For example, I've been talking to one e-residency company who had their main office in the Silicon Valley. And so they're US nationals, and once they are out of the country for around 240 days, they get huge tax evasions, around $100,000. And so they have a company there, they're working around Europe, their customers are around the globe, they don't live in the US, and so they just pay less social taxes. But of course, it's very personal, and we suggest that you always take a legal advice and legal consultation on your taxation issues, because it can be very different depending on what kind of business you're in.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and it's not a tax residency, so personal taxes are still paid where you live.
For sure.
And regarding corporate taxes, it's based on where your company generates value. So sometimes it may not be in Estonia, sometimes it is, sometimes it can be divided between different countries. But this is not something that e-residency has created. Those are the rules of OECD, and it's the same for all the digital companies.
So it's only the headquarters that are in Estonia?
Sorry?
The headquarters. It's the only thing in Estonia, right?
Corporate taxes is not based on on where the company is registered. It's based on where the value is generated, which, according to the OECD, is based on the permanent establishment of a company. So if, for instance, if you're a French entrepreneur, if you do all of your activities from France with only French clients, French partners, and all of this, you might end up paying all of your corporate taxes still in France. So it really depends on where you generate value, where your company generates value.
Thank you very much.
Is there a limit to the size that, for the companies who become e-resident?
As far as I know, we don't put any limits. But as we understood that the biggest value we can generate for small and medium-sized companies, although in Estonia we have larger companies who have international board members, and then they also can become e-residents. So just to simplify doing business, or companies like NASDAQ who also are using e-residency cards to identify some of their people, as I understand, to validate some deals. So this is also an opportunity. So actually, a huge company can benefit from the authentication and digital signature capabilities that come with the e-residency card. And this card is issued with a one-time fee of 100, how many, 100 euros?
100 euros, yeah,
exactly.
To become a resident. But it only covers the cost of issuing the card, so we don't do much benefits.
It actually has digital signature opportunities and the strongest level of identification already built in. So for global corporations, this could also be a good solution. But mostly, when managing a company and your business interest is in mind, then the small freelance, if I had to list the most popular fields of activities It's different business consultancy, financial consultancy, some holder companies, computer development activities, IT, different IT services, freelance services. So these are, well, the top 5 lists, I would say.
Hey, thanks for the talk. 2 questions. The first one is, what's the first step for me or my business to get going with you guys? And the second question is, like the follow-up is, how long does it take for an existing company that, well, I'm based in Canada, so how long does it take approximately to move a business from, like an established business from Canada to Estonia?
So the application process is quite quick, actually. You need to go to our website, e-resident.gov.au. You need to fill a form online, of course. Would make sense otherwise. You need to give a copy of your passport, photo. You need to pay the 100 euros fee. And then you need to wait for a background check done by the Police and Border Guard Administration. Because e-residency is totally inclusive. We don't discriminate anyone based on nationality or where the person lives, etc. But we still want to be sure that the potential e-resident hasn't been involved in any criminal activity, for instance. So you need to wait from 4 to 6 weeks to receive the confirmation of your application. Only less than 1% of applications have been rejected so far, so we assume most of the residents do it for good reasons. And then when you receive the confirmation, you can pick up your digital ID card in the nearest Estonian embassy, the embassy that you've chosen. So it's a very simple, very quick process. And then, of course, when you become a resident, you can create your company. Because individuals become e-resident. And one of the advantages you get is company creation. So if you already have a company in Canada, you still can keep your company in Canada. But when you become a resident, you will be able to create another company based in Estonia.
Okay, so just to make sure, so basically it would be more like I open up just a new business. I would shut down my business in Canada since but like my business doesn't even serve Canadian customers. It has like no value in Canada where I live, so I could just shut it down and then we, okay, interesting, thanks.
It's up to you. You can shut it down or you can manage both companies. It's as you wish.
All right.
Hello. I was wondering, in the examples you gave, you were talking a lot about people opening companies from outside of the EU. And it's true, it makes sense. You have a lot of advantages having a company in the EU. What would be the, let's say, top advantages for a person who is already in the EU to open in Estonia? If there's no tax benefits, what are the real other strong benefits?
Yeah, it's a very good question indeed. So why do we mostly communicate about non-EU citizens? It's because when you become a resident and you create a company, you have access to Estonian services. We have access to European market as well, so it's very valuable for entrepreneurs out of the EU. You have access to some business banking services, so not only from traditional banks, but also from fintech companies. And sometimes it's very difficult to access in other countries around the world. You also have access to international payment providers, and it's easier when you're European than when you're non-European, so e-residency can fix this. And you use digital signature and all this. And you also benefit from a trusted business environment, the Estonian one, but the European one as well. So, of course, some of these advantages are much more relevant for non-EU citizens. When you're a European citizen, the main value for you is that it really reduces the administrative issues that you may face when you become a resident. Which is why most of the use cases we have from France, from Germany, is mostly for freelancers or for digital nomads. Because when you work and travel at the same time, it's very complicated for you to print a document, sign it, send it to the administration. It can be very, very challenging when you want to be. You need to be much more agile and flexible. So for this kind of profile, digital nomads, freelancers, the European e-residents are actually benefiting a lot from our program. But indeed, as you said, we don't try to attract people based on tax benefits, because otherwise there would be fiscal dumping.
And if I can just add a little bit to that, When you're incorporating a company in Estonia, let's say you have a great startup idea and really in the first stage you don't want to invest hugely like in Belgium where you have to pay around 2,000 euros just for incorporation and then put 16,000 euros of the capital in already in the moment of you doing it. So it's kind of a big money. But in Estonia, in 400 euros for a year, you get a virtual office, you get a bank account, you had the e-Residency card, and you don't have to put even the share capital. And this fee would include their corporation fees as well. So which makes it super reasonable for testing a business idea and considering how tech-savvy Estonian is, how developed on the terms of infrastructure, how people are ready to test out technological stuff. It's great as a test bed. So it really makes sense for European business people not only to cut down on all the paperwork that you have been doing. In many countries, even just doing a tax report, it can be you need a tax accountant. And in Estonia, the tax report is done in 3 minutes' time. So it's no-brainer how much the administrative benefit is, but the financial implications also are big.
We'll take one more question and then we'll talk about the future.
Yeah, one more question, quick one, and probably a stupid one, but I'm from Belgium. My wife too. If we apply to become Estonian citizen, does it mean that we just drop our Belgian citizenship and we become Estonian citizen, or is it both and we keep both? And
it doesn't replace your nationality, so you still remain a Belgian citizen, but you will also have you also have the status of e-resident. But it doesn't mean you can travel with the e-residency card. It doesn't mean that if you are kidnapped in another country, you can ask for Estonian diplomacy help. No, it doesn't give you any civil nor legal rights.
So I'm still under the Belgian passport and IDs and all.
Yeah, we don't ask you to change your nationality. So.
That's the point.
Yeah.
People usually they want to live in the country that they're originating from, and they love their country. So you don't have to abandon your country or neither your citizenship. We had issues when it was communicated wrongly and it is referred to as e-citizenship, but it is definitely not. It doesn't give you any legal status. It's a benefit to access to business services, just that.
Yes, because basically what we, and we don't even try to attract people physically. When they come to Estonia, we're very happy, of course. But the idea is really to tell people that, we are very aware of the fact that the access to services is very unfair around the world. When we are European, we can access all of the basic services to become entrepreneurs, the online services, I mean. But when you are from other countries, it may be very challenging for you. So we tell entrepreneurs around the world, you can focus on your business, focus on your product, your ID, and we keep the way open for you. We provide you with the same access to services and opportunities, and you can still stay in your country, you can still stay with your family, friends, continue to have employees in your country, generate value there. We don't try to physically attract you. You can come if you want, but you don't have to.
What is coming next? What are the next steps for this e-residency program, action, members? Do you have any competitors in the world?
We don't see them as competitors really, but I mean we know that other countries are working on similar programs. We've heard that Azerbaijan is planning to launch an e-Residency. When Lithuania is planning to launch the possibility to open a company using blockchain technology. And we are actually very welcome of this kind of programs and project because it can only improve the governance globally. So regarding e-residency, one of the challenges we identified is that when you become a resident, you have to pick up your digital ID card in the Estonian embassy or in Estonia. However, we have only 34 embassies around the world. And most of them are actually in the in EU countries. We don't have any embassy in South America, for instance. So what we identified is the need to partner with private sector to open what we call e-Residency centers, so that people can pick up their ID card in countries in which Estonia doesn't have any embassy. So the Estonian president has inaugurated the first one in South Korea, and we're going to open new ones in other countries around the world in order to attract freelancers and entrepreneurs from there. So it's going to be much more convenient for them to pick up their ID card. And also, given that, as I previously said, we really want to increase the ties and the business connections between e-residents themselves, but also between e-residents and Estonian companies and Estonian citizens, because we want to increase the opportunities we provide to Estonian citizens. It's very important for us. So we're going to launch a community platform, which is going to allow e-residents to organize meetups, to promote their company, to find business partners, and even to post job openings and all of this.
When it is planned?
It's going to be launched by the end of summer, and it's also going to help Estonian companies to showcase their services directly to e-residents. So we really expect this kind of platform, which is kind of a LinkedIn for e-residents. We really expect this kind of platform to have e-residents feeling much more like part of a community. And also, so we're going to decentralize a lot of things, and they'll be able to organize their own events. And we don't know, maybe they're going to find new and radical and innovative ideas together. But at the same time, it will really help those e-residents to have much more business connections with Estonia. Because a lot of them don't realize that given that they create an Estonian company, they can also join the Estonian Chamber of Commerce, for instance. They can join a lot of business and economic networks in Estonia. And this is something we want to improve and want to develop next.
You talked to me about a partnership you have with the UN also?
Yeah. So 1 year ago we launched, and it was very interesting. So we launched a partnership with the United Nations, with UNCTAD, United Nations Commission on Trade and Development, for an initiative named E-Trade for All. We are the only governmental partner in this initiative. The other partners are Alibaba, Google, etc. And this initiative is aiming at facilitating e-commerce, development of e-commerce around the world. We really have this vision that e-commerce can definitely unlock global growth, especially in the communities who may not have an easy access to entrepreneurship worldwide. So we have a pilot project right now in
Where
India.
is it?
In India, it's in Delhi, and we're helping female entrepreneurs to do e-commerce there. So just imagine a country like Estonia, 1,300,000 inhabitants, helping in India, a country in which they have 1,300,000,000 inhabitants, and we're helping them and using also the partnership with the United Nations. So this is, as Anna explained, Estonia only regained its independence in 1991. And it's very hard for a country to find a message to spread with the rest of the world. And with e-Estonia and with programs such as e-Residency, Estonia really managed to be put, in some ways, to be put on the map and to punch much above its weight. And we're very happy to be able to do this, which is why we're always very happy to welcome political or business delegations and share the knowledge, share the experience, and also learn from other initiatives as well.
And you were asking about competition. Actually, the reason why we're here today is and especially in the Estonia showroom, we're hosting these international public sector decision makers. We're not afraid of competition. We actually want to encourage other countries to do the same. We want to explain to them that governments have to be proactive. They have to understand IT because then they wouldn't have to block companies like Uber and Airbnb because they just, they cannot find the ways to tax them, as on paper it cannot basically be done. We really want this change and shift to be happening, and governments have to take a more active role in this. And if us being here today can really encourage someone to do that, it means just the services in your countries will be just becoming better, because you cannot compete with building e-residency program on nothing. You have to build it on the basis of digitalized country, digitalized services, secure identification, and all of these things. They cannot just, Americans, there was some rumors that America is also going to invent and establish e-Residency.
We're only talking about facts and what's happening now.
They're following different trends now. But, and before we
still have room for one or more question out of that.
I just want to mention two other projects that not e-Residency program directly are involved in, but Estonia is going to continue to innovate, especially in the public sector. So Estonia is also, the government of Estonia is also working on on the first legislation to regulate artificial intelligence, to give a legal status to robots. So you're probably going to hear about it quite soon. I know artificial intelligence is a very important topic in France as well. And the Interior Ministry is also considering, together with some private companies like Jobatical, they're considering the opportunity to launch a digital nomad visa. So again, discussions are always open, but again, Estonia is going to continue to try to innovate and try to understand of the disruption, and especially disruption regarding the future of work, regarding the impact of robotization, automatization, artificial intelligence, and all of this. Always having in mind that you can't stop innovation. You can only lose time, but you can't stop innovation.
You're opening broad topics, and I'm giving the floor for one more question. So I already know there will be a problem with that. You can reach him on Twitter on his personal account, and you can find Anna with e-Estonia. So please ask them more questions about what you just said. Do we have one more question before he's ready?
Yeah, I was wondering, because we are talking about the next steps and what will happen after. I'm realizing that you're succeeding in creating a real Europe, except that it's digital. When e-Estonia will become e-EU?
We've proposed main technologies that we use, like for data exchange, for example, to European Union in 2013, first time. And now, finally, we could convince Finland to also use this platform for data exchange that actually solves the issue of reusing the data, not duplicating the data, solves all the big brother issues, and allows, a super nice data exchange like in Estonia. So it will take some time. We're not yet there. The digital summit we had last year and presidency events definitely put us on the map, and we could talk more about these things. We're always there. But it means, and we can see that France, Germany, we had Angela Merkel as well in Estonia. We can see that there is the demand for this, and probably something will start happening. It's just it will take time.
Thank you very much, Arnaud. We have to keep on time. Post it on Twitter and ask people to continue the conversation about that. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Arnaud. And thank you very much for your questions.